everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on my birthday. Very excited to be here with a lot of NBA free agency talk, some draft reaction. I got to say, there's two stories. One related to two Lakers-related stories as it pertains to their two draft picks, Dalton Knecht in the first round and Bronny James in the second round. I'm going to leave with Bronny James because that's kind of the big story in sports right now in just a second. But as much as it makes me, my stomach churn, the Lakers got a good one in the first round. And I hate saying that as a Warriors fan. And the reason I do hate saying that, what adds to is that I'm a Vols fan. So Dalton Knecht was great for us. Actually, amazing for us last year. That and about 30 minutes. Why the Knicks, and it has probably been 3 decades since I've been able, or anybody's been able to say this, I didn't exist 3 decades ago, is they are literally championship or bust. Anything short of that, it's weird to say failure. If they get to a finals and lose, it's not a disaster, but it's darn sure not a success given what they built, in terms of their organization over the last couple of seasons, the last really 4 years since Leon Rose took over. That in about 12 minutes. Also, gonna get into my Golden State Warriors. I've been talking about them all week, but we have some more updates. The Golden State Warriors are the moves of the potential acquisitions. The wheels are turning on that one, and I can give you further information on that later in the show in about 30 to 40 minutes. And at the end of today's show, free agency predictions. Free agency, I want to say this in the most emphatic air quotes ever, starts on Sunday night at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Not the time of the time of our show, just not on a Sunday, obviously. So, what would that be? June 30th. So, free agency starts then. I'll give my predictions for where certain guys end up signing with or staying with their current teams. But first, Los Angeles Lakers make the move of the NBA draft. I think the most discussed NBA draft pick was the guy who was the fourth to last pick of said draft, a kid by the name of Bronny James. If that sounds familiar, he's obviously the son of the great LeBron James. The Lakers selected him with the 55th pick in the NBA draft yesterday. And this is now going to be assuming LeBron stays with the Lakers, and that seems to be all but a formality at this point. So this is going to be the very first father-son duo in the history of the NBA ever. It's never happened before, a father and a son playing on the same team. And you would think a story such as this, especially Father's Day wasn't very long ago, with the sort of the great, I guess, American stories we like to hear about kid comes from nothing, LeBron James, kid comes from nothing, has to overcome all this adversity, is a child prodigy, beats the odds in terms of the environment he grew up around, beats the odds as it pertains to child prodigies, as it pertains to no scandals whatsoever, no arrests, none of that. Has, whether you think LeBron's the greatest player ever or not, we can debate that another day. He's had a phenomenal career, one of the 2 greatest players ever, I think, inarguably. And he's going to be teammates with his kid. How freaking cool is that? That's not what's happened. Now, I'm not surprised by it. I mean, it would be naive of me to think that there's going to be any sort of positivity as it relates to LeBron James playing with his son with the Los Angeles Lakers. But given the world we live in, and in particular, I've heard a lot of factors why there's a sort of animosity towards LeBron, towards Bronny, whatever the case may be, that it has to do with that race may play factor, that anything of that sort may play factor. It feels weird. It has to do with one thing. There's an envy, there's a jealousy, and there's an animosity towards LeBron James that I think goes all the way back to the good old decision back in 2010 when he publicly spurned Cleveland, who he later came back to 4 years later. And by the way, at that media event, raised money for the Boys and Girls Club. Point is, dared take control of his career and put it in his own hands and join the Miami Heat franchise because he felt they could give him a better chance to win championships. Isn't that what we want our athletes to care about? I've said for a long time that people got to pick a side. People who are athlete haters, all they care about is the money. And then when they go to a team that gives them a better chance to win and actually spurn the money, they're trying to stack the deck. You want them to win or not? Like, what? I'm curious the inconsistency as it pertains to how you view an athlete's priorities. But the number one thing I'm hearing, it's nepotism. This is LeBron James, who's created a career for himself that has been unmatched and unprecedented outside of only a few, Michael, Kareem, Kobe, Magic, guys like that. And now his son just gets a spot in the Lakers. First order of business is this. Bronny James did play in the McDonald's All-American game as a high schooler. Like, the kid was a very good high school player. I'm not going to make him out to like as if he was going to be, hey, the number one overall pick. That was never going to be in discussion. Kid was a very good player, very elite, actually, I would say, high school basketball player. Commits to USC and then suffers as scary an event as a human being could suffer. He suffers cardiac arrest in the summer of last year. Could have, not forget his basketball career, that's secondary, could have cost the man his life. Thank God, got the medical treatment, and here we are a year later, and he's about to play professional basketball with the Lakers franchise. And the thing that I'm really struggling with is they used a draft pick on him. It was the 55th pick. Was Bronny James the 55th best player in the class? No, my buddy Mike Guido, who did a fantastic job covering the draft. Shout out to Mike through the last couple days on our Grid Network draft live streaming coverage. Had Bronny James as the 62nd best player on his board. So this wasn't like this was this crazy reach to take a kid who was awful. Well, Bronny averaged 4.8 points per game. Yeah, Alex Sarr averaged 9. Alex Sarr was the second pick in the draft. This draft, the whole structure of the NBA draft, is based on one thing, and I should say one thing. The leading sort of qualification to be a high NBA draft pick is upside. That's why you don't see a lot of 4-year starters in college. They have their place, no question, and they're usually more ready to play in the NBA right off the bat. But guys like Wemby, they don't need to play 4 years overseas or 4 years in college, or guys like a LeBron who came out of high school. That's just not how the draft works. So it's on upside. So the upside of the Bronny, I think, is still very much there. The idea is that if he was totally unqualified is not true. What I go back to, and what I'm really just not appalled by, but kind of disgusted by, is that this has people want to use the nepotism excuse. And does Bronny James get drafted by the Lakers 55th overall if his dad, LeBron James, is not in the team? No, he does not. I firmly believe that there's a very good chance Bronny James goes undrafted. No question. But fourth to last pick of the draft, chill. Second of all, he'd have been picked up by somebody else anyway. Again, it's not like there's this guy who's like some trust fund kid or something. So putting that aside, I'm seeing more outrage over perceived nepotism, real or imagined. I think it's a combination of both, towards Bronny James than I ever saw with any of these situations combined. There's a guy who plays for the Milwaukee Bucks who's not very good. Like, I don't want to be mean-spirited, probably a nice guy, but Thanasis Antetokounmpo is not a good NBA player. His brother Giannis is one of the 3 best players in the world. I don't think it's going to break the NBA world if a roster spot's given to Giannis's brother. If it keeps Giannis in small market Milwaukee, not a little city, but small market Milwaukee, Giannis is the player that the city might as well have adopted as their own son back in 2013, and he won a championship and MVPs Defensive Player of the Year. If this keeps him happy, so be it. Hey, where were you? Giannis Thanasis Antetokounmpo can eat for free here at any restaurant. Is the analogy I'm using. Some folks may not know this, but everybody knows how great Steph Curry is. His little brother Seth Curry has had a pretty darn solid NBA career. Just a little bit like their dad, Del Curry. Del Curry was an excellent shooter. Seth Curry's a very good shooter. He might as well. His last name's Curry. Bounced around the league, but as a nice, valuable piece when it comes to three-point shooting. There's a role on every team in that regard for shooters. You want to know where Seth Curry started his NBA career? Want to take a guess? Golden State. He started his career with the Santa Cruz Warriors. So he ended up, he was undrafted in the 2013 draft after a solid career at Duke. And he ended up as a Golden State Warrior briefly before he was moved later on to, looks like, to the Memphis franchise and then the Cleveland that year. The team who's employed his older brother. This was before Steph was winning championships, but Steph was an all-star caliber player at that point. Let's give little bro a shot. No outrage there. Interesting. I also hear no outrage because there's this people putting this false idea. Oh, nepotism. It's not an idea we like to see in American sports. We may not like to see it. I'm certainly not a fan of it, but it's been here for a long time. I counted the list, and this doesn't even count siblings of current NFL owners who inherited the franchise from their siblings. 14 NFL teams. The owner of that franchise did not buy the team. Their parent did. You think about the Lions, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Giants, Steelers, 49ers, Buccaneers, Titans, Cardinals, Bears, Bengals, Texans, Colts. All of those franchises, all the owners of those franchises inherited that team from a parent. And I don't hear a word about it. Even in politics, nepotism is rampant. One of the most beloved politicians in the history of this country, John F. Kennedy. It feels harsh to call him a nepo baby, but that's kind of what he was. Joseph Kennedy was a highly respected politician in the 20th century. And let's just say that nice upbringing didn't exactly hurt JFK, and it didn't hurt RFK or any of the Kennedys who become like a political dynasty. The Bush family, similar situation. We've seen nepotism up and down American history. John Quincy Adams, son of President John Adams. Now, you got to work to get to stay there, but doesn't hurt to have a relative who's in the spotlight, who's very successful at their craft and has paved their own way. We've seen a number in Hollywood. It's very rampant in Hollywood, maybe more than any business. We've seen plenty of individuals whose dads or their moms were excellent actors, and the kids fizzled out quick. But they got the opportunity because their parent was who their parent was. But some of them created their own path. The late Donald Sutherland, who just passed away recently. Son Kiefer, pretty good career. We see this up and down the history of Hollywood, politics, sports, business. I go to a local business anywhere you live in America, any small town in America. Let's say you'll find a nice sum of them where the owner, and this doesn't take credit at all from who they are and what they've done, but might have inherited from a dad or a mom or a sister, an aunt, an uncle, a grandfather, grandmother. I'm not a fan of nepotism. I think most people aren't. But the idea that this is an outrage. Folks are acting like Bronny was riding the bench in high school, got a full ride to USC because his dad's LeBron and is in the NBA only because, guys, Bronny James would have been picked up as an undrafted free agent. We do realize that, right? He would have been on a summer league roster. So again, the idea that this is some outrage and is being treated as such rather than, wow, one of the greatest players ever. A guy who has done off the court has done everything right. Community service, social justice work, philanthropy, opened a freaking school, family man, no arrests, no major controversy. If the decision's LeBron's biggest controversy, if the China thing, for crying out loud, is his controversy, grow up. And his kid is going to be his teammate. How cool is this? But because of an animosity towards LeBron that I truly think goes all the way back to the decision, and let's be honest, his constant pursuit of Michael Jordan, which threatens a lot of Jordan fans, that's why the reaction was what it was from so many. So I want to be one of many. I'm certainly not the first, won't be the last, to celebrate this opportunity in this moment. This is a great historical sports moment. LeBron James, no lower than the second greatest basketball player who ever walked to this earth. One of his teammates is his own son. How awesome is that? And let's celebrate that for what it is. Sports and sports family history. Shout out to Bron. Shout out to Bronny. Kudos to the Lakers. And kudos to Rich Paul also for pulling the strings and making this happen. This isn't to... My thing is, if you were falling all the way to 55, if you were another potential pick who maybe could have helped the Lakers more, but again, if you're in the 50s, you're probably not helping them much at all for the next few years anyway. I don't think it's that big of an outrage, but because LeBron's involved, it is. Hope I did a decent job of articulating that. Patrick, it's a very surreal moment for the James family. Bronny has won in life by continuing his career. People have forgotten his life and career were at stake a year ago. And that's not hyperbole, Patrick, because it's true. The kid had cardiac arrest as a kid 1 year ago. And it was I remember covering on the show, it was a very scary situation. And thank the good Lord above that the Bronny pulled out of that fine, didn't play, I think, the first 8 games for USC last year. Had a disappointing college year, but I mean, do we expect DeMar Hamlin to have a great season with the Buffalo Bills after basically dying on the field the season before? Like, that's coming back from an injury is one thing. Coming back from something that could have literally killed you is quite different. So kudos to Bronny. What else we got up in here? Patrick Brown. It's a sick, twisted society we live in where the media continues to show their disdain for LeBron. He's earned the right to play with his son, and people need to get over it. Giannis's brother doesn't contribute to winning for the Bucks. That roster spot could help the team get back to title contention, yet the media doesn't skate outrage about it. And by the way, I don't even think it's that big of an outrage. Listen, I don't think the 14th spot in the Bucks roster is all of a sudden going to make them the title favorites or anything in the Eastern Conference, but it does. It's kind of like what I talked about in a different context, but when people are like, oh, Udonis Haslem's taking up a roster spot in Miami, it's like, I think his leadership, I know UD's leadership and the toughness he brings to Miami, with all due respect to some of the journeyman guys in the league, that has a far greater impact for the Heat than it would for an undrafted guy from Monmouth or something. Like, I don't get why people do get twists and knots about it. And one more comment from Patrick. LeBron's kids are chilled, humble, and know how to move differently. For LeBron to not had a father growing up, he took it upon himself to make sure he was there every day. And to that point, Patrick, it is the one thing that has never made sense to me. And I'm sure there's a number of factors that play at this, but when we talk about a great American story or the American dream, is there that many people living right now in this country that resemble that more than LeBron James? Like, wouldn't in a perfect world, in a perfect America, wouldn't that be like the perfect advertisement for the country? Hey, this kid who never knew his dad, moved around Akron, Ohio, single mom, didn't know where his next meal was going to come from, didn't know where he was going to live tomorrow, goes on to be maybe the greatest greatest player in the history of basketball, if I could put it in different context. One of the greatest people ever in his field. And now, with no controversies, none of that, married, has been with his wife since they were teenagers, 3 kids, beautiful family, and now one of his kids is going to literally be his teammate. I'm sorry, that's a cool story. I don't know why that's really got people up in arms. The idea that the 55th pick was going to change life for the Lakers. Come on, guys. Like, let's can we at least attempt to act like adults here? That's all I'm asking. And I appreciate for what it is. It's a cool sports moment. It is. At any rate, I'll talk about the Dalton Knecht pick later because, God, that made me sick. As a Vols fan, as a Warriors fan, that made me freaking sick. I'll get to that in about 10 minutes. Let's transition to the Knicks, though. So the Wi-Fi connection went totally kaput at the end of Wednesday's show. Right as I was doing Bryce's Best 10, it just goes out. So I had to quickly go on my phone, finish the show. And then I ended the show with the Knicks take, but the connection was bad. I don't know how well the audio sounded. So I might as well essentially redo it again on today's show and hope the Wi-Fi doesn't go out. So the New York Knicks decide to bring back OG Anunoby on a 5-year contract. They obviously trade for Mikal Bridges before that. And so not only are they the Nova Knicks with Brunson, with Mikal Bridges, with Josh Hart, with Dante DiVincenzo, a number of really good ancillary pieces like a Miles McBride, like a Mitchell Robinson potentially if he comes back. Julius Randle potentially. Now, they may use him as a trade piece. We'll see. That remains to be seen over the course of this offseason. Who knows? Maybe up until next season's trade deadline, because this Knicks team did get to within a game of the Eastern Conference Finals, beat up, by the way, without Julius Randle. So this is a very unique moment for the New York Knicks, man, because we have always looked at them. They haven't won a title since, I think, 1973. So it's been over a half century since they've hoisted the Larry O'Brien Trophy. And over the last 20 years, certainly 25 years, you could argue, if you want to go back to their last great moment as a franchise, which was getting to the finals in 99 as an 8 seed and then losing to the Duncan Robinson-led Spurs. They've kind of been looked at as the joke of the NBA. I mean, we've looked at the Clippers, but the Clippers have always been a joke, right? And the Clippers live in the shadow of the Lakers, so the Knicks are one of the premier glamour franchises, not only of the NBA, but of sports. So they're literally Lakers East, except they have a more iconic arena. They have just as many celebrities showing up to their games. Jon Stewart, you got Tracy Morgan showing up to games, Leslie Jones showing up to games, a lot of SNL talent, comedians, actors, actresses, athletes in other sports. Yankees show up, New York Giants show up. And so it's a massive brand. And it's a brand that has been kind of tarnished over the last 20 years, in mostly with James Dolan to blame. But since James Dolan, to his credit, hired Leon Rose to be the president of basketball operations 4 years ago, basically right as COVID was starting to permeate to the entire globe. And Leon Rose took over a tough situation in New York where there was dysfunction with the coach. The roster wasn't very good. Just 9 months prior, they had missed out on both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and Zion Williamson, if you want to include the 2019 lottery. It looked like the Knicks were as in shambles as they've ever been. Well, after COVID, now the Knicks don't qualify to make the bubble. The next season, sort of the COVID-esque season where players were still playing in arenas, the bubble was over. Knicks make the playoffs. Knicks are the 4 seed. They make the playoffs. MSG is back. Spike Lee, here we go. And then they lose to Atlanta. Like, Julius Randle was an all-star that year, but didn't show up in the playoffs. The next year, they made some odd offseason moves, missed the playoffs. It's like, okay, it's same old Knicks. But then they make the addition of Jalen Brunson. It's like, at that time, we're like, Brunson's a good player, but God, that's a lot of money for a guy who was a very important player to Dallas's Western Conference Finals run, but that felt at the time like it was sort of Luka and everybody else, and Brunson was a good player. Well, as it turns out, Jalen Brunson is a fringe top 10 player in the NBA, if we want to be honest about it. I'll probably rank my top 10 players next week, potentially, on Bryson's Best 10. So they had him. A season later, they sent Dante DiVincenzo. They bring in Josh Hart, obviously. They now have Mikal Bridges, and they keep OG Anunoby, who they traded for midseason a year ago. And we know the job that he has done, OG, who I'm talking about, in terms of the Knicks record, which is off the charts since he's been there. But what is, I think, sort of the byproduct of that, title or bust for the Knicks. This is it. And part of the reason I say that is because I think the Knicks have a 2-year window. So Jalen Brunson, so we live in the new CBA with the second apron and all that stuff. So it's going to be much harder for teams to kind of stack the deck the way the Warriors did years ago, the way the Miami Heat did years ago, the Celtics. It's going to be much harder to do that. So you have Jalen Brunson, you have Mikal Bridges, arguably your 2 best players. Both combined over the next 2 years, in terms of average annual salary, less than $50 million for those 2 players. We know Mikal Bridges is offensively, he's a good player. When he was traded to the Nets in the 20-odd games or so at the end of that season, he averaged 26 a game. He's an excellent defensive player, good on-ball defender, good help defender, excellent. And we know what Jalen Brunson is. We saw what he did in the playoffs, all those 40-point games, carrying the Knicks past the Sixers, a more talented Sixers team, and darn near dragging a beat-up Knicks team to the Eastern Conference Finals. So you have those pieces. You have DiVincenzo's important. You have Josh Hart, who's your hustle guy. Julius Randle, we'll see what his role is with this group. And you bring back OG Anunoby, who, when healthy, is crucially important to this team. Part of the reason, not just the salaries that I said the Knicks are Tyler or bust. Can we take a look at the Eastern Conference? I mean, come on. Boston's awesome. They're defending champions. They should be the favorites out of the Eastern Conference. They are the favorites in Vegas to win the NBA championship in 2025. They're the best all-around top-to-bottom team as we sit here today in the NBA. I'm of the belief that I think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to make a great move. Is it Jimmy Butler? Do they bring in a guy like a DeMar DeRozan? Like, who do they bring in? But I think the piece is going to be they have the cap space to bring him in with Joel Embiid, who I don't trust, but if you give Embiid these nice ancillary pieces and star players, all-star caliber players, now there's no excuse for him not to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they have an excellent coach in Nick Nurse. So I think Philadelphia is going to be a very real player this upcoming season. The Harden trade was, I ripped the Clippers for making it, and I praised the Sixers absolutely fleeced the Clippers, and that's why they're in the position that they're in today to add another piece. After that, Milwaukee has, worst case, the third best player in the world in Giannis. Dame, who's still very good, but often injured, not a good defensive player, and not a good fit with Giannis. And the roster looks like it's about to go through a little bit of a, I don't want to say rebuild, but certainly a reshaping. I reported on the show on Wednesday, given sources I'd heard in the Bay Area telling me this, that there's a potential chance that the Milwaukee Bucks swap Bobby Portis for Andrew Wiggins, who's good. He's a good player. He's a good perimeter defender and can make an open three, but isn't going to change life in Milwaukee. Not the way he did in Golden State anyway. Brook Lopez could be on the trading block. Doc Rivers is still the head coach in Milwaukee. Didn't really feel it. Indiana's on the come up. I think Indiana's still like another move away from really being a real player in the Eastern Conference, and maybe they make that move this offseason. Who knows? But they play no defense. That's been their Achilles heel the last couple of seasons. Rick Carlisle is an excellent coach. Halliburton is a star on the rise. Them adding Pascal Siakam was just as impactful as the Knicks adding OG Anunoby, and that's why the Pacers re-signed Pascal Siakam. But they don't play defense. And let's be honest, had the Knicks been healthy, because we saw an unhealthy Knicks team get to a Game 7 against these Pacers. If they're healthy, they beat Indiana. They do. You continue to look up and down the Eastern Conference, and it's Miami who's going to move off of Jimmy Butler, and the Cavs are really talented, but offensively challenged. We'll see how the Kenny Atkinson hire works. I think it's going to work because I think Kenny is a really good coach, but are they Eastern Conference Finals, favorites? Probably not, at least to the level of certainly a Boston, but even to the level of an improved Philadelphia team and an improved Knicks team. Probably not. So the season to me, and we'll see the moves that are going to happen this weekend over the course of the next couple of weeks and throughout the offseason and at the trade deadline this upcoming NBA season, that I think the Knicks, if they do not make the Eastern Conference Finals, we'll see what happens in the next few months. If they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, it's an absolute failure, colossal failure of a season. Given how the East looks right now, and given the pieces that they've added to a team that was that close to getting to that level. And as currently constructed, they're kind of built a little bit like Boston. Jalen Brunson, there's some questions, is he a superstar? Jason Tatum, those questions are, is he that top guy in the league? So a superstar player, I believe Tatum and Brunson to both be superstars. I do. I've seen great playoff performance out of both of them. Tatum now has a ring on his shelf, on his finger, so to speak. But there's questions about both of those guys. And then really good pieces after that. Now, the Celtics obviously have Jaylen Brown, finals MVP. But after that, it's like really good B-plus pieces. Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis. The Knicks are kind of doing the same thing. OG Anunoby, Dante DiVincenzo, Hart, Mikal Bridges. Like, this is Julius Randle. This is a very, very good basketball team. The Vegas odds reflect it. They're tied with the second best odds to win the championship. It goes Boston, and then Denver and the Knicks are tied for second. That's where they are now. And so I think you're going to see this because there is a certain level of scrutiny for the Lakers, for the Knicks, for the Celtics, for big market Sixers, big market franchises to really go for it, to really be able to be aggressive in the offseason and put that into play and put that into action and actually go in deep into the playoffs. There's going to be a heightened level of scrutiny for the Knicks, and I think for the first time in almost 3 decades, I think it's deserved. There should be a level of scrutiny on Tom Thibodeau and on Jalen Brunson and on the rest of these guys. That is no way me saying that they shouldn't do it. It's me saying I think you're good enough to where we should have those expectations of you. So the East is weak. The Knicks roster construction, I think, is really, really good. Like, I was of the mindset, like, I liked the Mikal Bridges move. I did think it made them better, but I assumed, OG's gone. The reports coming out of New York were saying the negotiations, OG wants a lot of money. I didn't know if it was going to work. And OG came back. Given how the rosters line up. And it's kind of the same thing in Boston. Like, Boston next year is going to lose Derek White in all likelihood. Al Horford's going to retire. Porzingis' health. So Boston, coming into last season, had a 2-year window. They hit a home run in the first one. We'll see what they do in the second one. No reason to believe that they can't do it once again. The Knicks, I think, are entering a very similar window, and we'll see how they capitalize on it. I have questions about Thibodeau, and I like Mikal Bridges a lot better as a third option than a second option as a scorer, but I do think he can be a second option because as a number one option, albeit on a bad Nets team, he did average 26 a game for what it's worth. And you have to imagine with the Villanova chemistry, Brunson put him in positions to score, no question. The heightened expectations for the Knicks are to be expected, and they're deserved. Hey, my guy Ryan Flowers in the comments. What's up, Ryan? He says, happy birthday, brother. Shout out to Ryan Flowers, Clutch Sports Talk, Coach Clutch, for those that know him as that NFL talk show every Sunday afternoon, or Sunday morning, rather, during the season, Clutch Sports NFL Sunday. Ryan, I don't think I've been on your show in a while. We're going to have to make that happen soon. Ryan has been on my kickoff show since 2021 through obviously last season. Hopefully we can make that happen again this year, live or pre-recorded, to sort of preview the upcoming NFL season. We've been doing it the last few years, and Ryan's NFL knowledge, football knowledge more specifically, is as good as they come. Again, he is a coach now. So very excited to hopefully have Ryan back on the show. And listen, I'd like to come on your show, Ryan. But I appreciate the birthday love, man. That's my guy. So let's move back to the Lakers. And this makes me sick. People are, oh my God, Bronny James. It's a great sports story. Can we please treat it like that? Lakers fans should be over the moon about their first round pick. And I'm sick to my stomach about it. You're like, Bryce, do you think Dalton Knecht's going to drop 30 a game? Well, not necessarily. But Dalton Knecht last season played for the Orange and White, the everything school, Tennessee Volunteers. And pulled for that kid hard. Good kid. A heck of a scorer. My gosh, he averaged 21 a game as a perimeter player. On 45% shooting, almost 40% shooting from three, about 39% from three. He can score off the dribble, catch and shoot off of screens. He can move off ball, on the ball. He can pull up three, everything, mid-range. He can finish at the rim. I think he's the most gifted overall scorer in this NBA draft, which is why it was shocking that he fell all the way to 17. I thought he was a certain lottery pick. Maybe he fell to the bottom of the lottery. My man Mike Guido had him mocked in his draft at number 12 to Oklahoma City. That felt reasonable. 17? Like, what were these? I'm not sure what these GMs, some really smart ones like Daryl Morey, by the way, were seeing with this. But he falls to 17. The Lakers take him. I was sick as a dog. Not literally, but I felt like it. On the show, on the Grade Network NBA Draft live reaction show on Wednesday with Mike Guido. And Barry Grant Jr. came in to rub in my face. Dylan Lima did a great job on that show as well, by the way. And the Lakers got a really good player. I'm going to tell you why. Part of the reason the Lakers got a really good player is he can help them win right now. Right now. LeBron, to me, is still, I have yet to see otherwise, the best player in the Lakers. Anthony Davis is a close second. Austin Reeves is probably the third guy. Certainly the third offensive option. Give it till December, January, about mid-season. Dalton Knecht will be the fourth option offensively for the Los Angeles Lakers. I think we're going to get to a point in time where J.J. Redick will have to make a very hard decision. Is Dalton Knecht our sixth man, or is Austin Reeves our sixth man? Or do we play both? That's well within the realm of possibility as well. Austin Reeves can play off the ball as well, so that'd be a good fit with LeBron playing on ball as sort of the de facto point guard, Anthony Davis as your big, and you assume Hachimura is probably out there as well. But this kid, I think, now going to the Lakers is a little bit different than if you were to go to like a Detroit Pistons or Spurs or an organization that's on a complete rebuild. Because if that were the case, now the Spurs would be different because they have Wemby. But if you were to end up in Detroit, Washington, kid can average 18 points a game. Honestly, I am that confident in his ability to score the basketball on an efficient level. No, that's not going to be the case with the Lakers because LeBron's going to be the primary decision maker, ball handler, and likely scorer. Anthony Davis will certainly be in that conversation as well as the double-double threat and defensive demon that he is. But again, I want to reemphasize this. Off the dribble, he's excellent. Catch and shoot, excellent. He can come off of screens. He can set screens. He can shoot the mid-range. He's a good free throw shooter. He can get to the basket and finish. He can dunk on your head. He's got a good layup package, the whole bit. He's got deep range. Now, his one weakness, he's a very bad defensive player and will be exposed as such. I think when that's going to be the tough part for J.J. Redick, the new coach of the Lakers, where late in games, if Dalton Knecht has it going, but the other team is just attacking him in the pick and roll, that's going to be really, really. Now, having Anthony Davis, as sort of the to be able to play help defense, off weak side or strong side, where Dalton Knecht's at, helps. Potential defensive player of the year guy. But I think this kid is remarkable. I truly believe that. Had he gone to a worse franchise in terms of overall roster construction, I think he would be my favorite to win Rookie of the Year. Now at the Lakers, he's not going to get as much opportunity just because of the structure that's already there. But I think the Lakers hit it out of the park. Got lucky, the fact that he fell to 17, but hit it out of the park with this. I think this is a great pick for LA. And Knecht's going to be a heck of a player in the NBA. And this is a guy, too. We talk about scoring ability. He scored 30 points 6 times last season. That's not common. We've watched men's college basketball. This isn't Caitlin Clark doing what she did at Iowa. Dalton Knecht scored 30 points 6 times last year, including in the Tennessee's season-ending loss in the Elite Eight to Purdue, and Zach Edey, who was the 9th pick, to the Memphis Grizzlies. Dalton Knecht was at just as good, certainly scoring the basketball, as Zach Edey was in that basketball game. So, listen, I'm thrilled for the kid. He's getting this opportunity in the NBA. I think he's going to flourish with J.J. Redick, which is why it makes me sick. Now, the good news is, when LeBron's gone in 2 to 3 years, Lakers will go back to being the irrelevant, dysfunctional disaster that they are. But in the here and now, it's going to be rough for me. I really like Knecht a lot, and it's not just because I'm a Tennessee guy, although that certainly factors. But man, why'd the Lakers have to get him? Like, if Memphis had got him, that'd have been tough. Everybody knows how I feel about the Memphis Grizzlies. If the Cavs had gotten him, that sucked too. But the Cavs didn't even, weren't even in position really to take the kid, given where they were drafting. Philadelphia, I don't like this. The city of Philadelphia, their fans drive me crazy. I don't have any animosity toward the Sixers organization. I really like Daryl Morey. I think people think I hate Embiid. I don't hate Embiid. I just want to see more from him in the playoffs. Maxey, I love. I would have had it. I think that would have been a great situation for Dalton Knecht. So screw you, Daryl Morey, for not taking the kid. Come on now. Anywho's it. Let's move on to the Golden State Warriors, who I've been covering at length throughout the week. And they have been, let's just say, active this offseason when it comes down to their the movement that they're looking to make in terms of adding talent to the roster, as well as the fact that they're about to have a guy in Klay Thompson, a legend in Golden State. Almost certainly, at this point, what I'm hearing, it's about a 95% chance Klay Thompson's not a Warrior next season. Like it's felt like it's been trending that way for a while. At this point, I'll predict where Klay Thompson goes in our last segment. It's not going to be with the Warriors. It's just not. It doesn't work financially. Even if it did work financially, there's a weird friction between Klay and the front office. Like it's not going to work. It's part of the reason I think Bob Myers left the franchise, is because he didn't want to have to be the guy, as a dude who drafted Klay Thompson, to have to make the decision to move on from Klay Thompson in order to kind of help preserve that personal relationship, I think. And that does get mixed up in business decisions, that people think it's personal at times, and it may be, it may not be. In this case, it certainly isn't with the Warriors, but Klay doesn't help them as much as a Paul George would, who is reported to be interested in a team that will offer him a 4-year max contract. Well, according to Brian Windhorst, the Golden State Warriors are one of those teams. And so I feel like, and free agency is going to kick off, I say that with big time quotation marks, because free agency kicks off a certain time every year, but we know the negotiations have been happening for a while, because when free agency hits, oh, this guy signed. Those deals weren't negotiated in 5 seconds. I hate to tell you. I feel like a kid on like December 23rd, right before Christmas, like you're looking under the tree, you see the presents, and there's that one gift you've been like, oh, I've been dying for this. And you see it, and you're like, I know what it is. I can't open it, but gosh darn it, I can't wait for Christmas morning. That's how I feel as a Golden State Warriors fan. I feel like, listen, my hope was dwindling a bit, not in Steph Curry. I have no doubt in Steph Curry. But in the Warriors' ability to construct a roster to give Steph Curry an opportunity to compete for more championships, because that's what they owe him. More on that in just a second. But this is Joe Lacob we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is a dude who does not like to lose, and this is a guy who does not care what he has to spend. If it puts his team in a position to compete for championships, that's all Joe Lacob cares about, which is why I love the guy. It's why he's one of my favorite owners in all sports. Stan Kroenke, by the way, who's the owner of the Rams and of the Nuggets, is the same way. It's winning, and that's what matters. Not the business doesn't matter. But I'm willing to cut checks if it means we win. That's why Joe Lacob sort of lamented the fact, biggest payroll in the NBA, and we didn't even get to the playoffs. That's not good. And you knew changes were going to come, and they are coming. So the Warriors today... Oh, we just had some breaking news. I'm going to table this for just a second, guys, because if I can go and pull up I didn't think we'd have breaking news during the show. Maybe I should have, but do we have the air horn? Do we have the air horn right now? We have news. Get the air horn louder. Come on. Where's the air horn? According, and Woj beat Shams to the punch by seconds. I mean, by seconds. Like, Shams has been getting Woj as of late, but Woj got him here. According to Woj, the Atlanta Hawks are trading DeJounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans. So it felt like DeJounte Murray was given the trading block for a while, either him or Trae Young. I have talked about the fact that the Hawks have been stuck in the ultimate NBA no man's land with the fact that they're paying these two guards, DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, an exorbitant amount of money. And the fact of the matter is, when the two play together, they're 7 games under 500 as a duo. It just doesn't work. In the last 2 years, ever since they acquired DeJounte Murray, first round exit against Boston, and they lose badly in the first playing game to the Bulls, not to the Sixers, to the Bulls, looks like they're going to be in a similar situation as well. So Murray is traded to the Hawks. Now, Shams has reported, Shams beat Woj to this punch in terms of what's being included in the deal. The Pelicans are moving Larry Nance Jr. and 2 first-round picks to the Hawks for DeJounte Murray. I want to say Jamal Murray so bad. DeJounte Murray. So Larry Nance Jr., 2 first-round picks to the Atlanta Hawks for DeJounte Murray. So that was a good old-fashioned Woj bomb that Shams eventually reported the terms of later on. So listen, I was in the middle of a Warriors segment. That's a big deal in the NBA. So DeJounte Murray is an all-star caliber guy. So they're going to move him. So he's going to be now with CJ McCollum, with Zion Williamson. It looks like the Pelicans are also going to try and move Brandon Ingram. I wonder if Ingram is included in this deal. Right now, all that's being reported is just Larry Nance Jr. It doesn't look like Brandon Ingram is a part of this trade. But that's what we can tell you right now on Carving Up Live. Breaking news. The New Orleans Pelicans are trading, looks like Woj has more terms, a 2025 first-rounder via the Lakers and a least favorable Milwaukee Pelicans 2027 first-round pick, Larry Nance Jr., and this says, and more for Murray, sources tell ESPN. That last part, and more, tells me maybe some second-rounders, maybe like a bench guy, potentially. Dyson Daniels. Okay, well, here you go. Shams reports it. It's like, this is a war right now going on, guys. Shams versus Woj. Here we go. Shams says Dyson Daniels is part of the deal as well. He is going to be traded to the Atlanta Hawks. So again, as I say it, it gets reported. Kind of a nice bench guy, certainly a younger guy that Atlanta could try and see what they could do with him. And Dyson Daniels. So there you go. So again, that's that last part and more. This got reported. This news broke 3 minutes ago. Brandon Ingram, had he been involved in the deal, that would have been like off the bat. Brandon Ingram for DeJounte Murray, other pieces to be announced later, right? So the Pelicans are in an interesting position here. So they add DeJounte Murray to be their point guard, and that's what they've sorely missed over the last few years, with CJ McCollum, with Zion Williamson when healthy, and they're going to move Brandon Ingram. That's really interesting. So the Pelicans are in kind of a good position here because I think they have a really good coaching staff. David Griffin, I think, is one of the more underrated GMs in the NBA. I think he's very good at what he does. So they can move Ingram for another good player and be in a position in the Western Conference to make a run potentially. Again, it all hinges on Zion's health. Like, that's the thing for the Pelicans, is that season in and season out, it's Zion's hurt again. Okay, we can't really go where we want to go. But okay, so Woj bomb. Woj won that one. But it's funny here, the Woj reports this, and the Shams reports it, back and forth, the newest details and information. But the main thing, last thing, then I'll get back to my Warriors topic. DeJounte Murray traded to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., a 2025 first, and a 2027 first. And Woj says, and more. I don't know if Dyson Daniels is the and more of that trade, but that's what we have as of now. So, boom. Another big move in this NBA offseason. I like this move for the Pelicans. They've been needing a point guard for a while. A dude who can score efficiently, pair him up with a good vet and CJ. All comes down to Zion. If Zion stays healthy, and that's a big if, because he rarely is when the Pelicans need him to be, they can be a real threat in the Western Conference. So I really like this deal for the Pelicans. And by the way, I really like this deal for the Hawks. Like, they weren't going anywhere with this duo. At least try and get something back. You get a first rounder. So the Hawks, I guess, will have 2 first-round picks in 2025 with Alex Sarr, who they drafted second overall. So the Hawks, if they don't do anything substantial this season, I have no reason to believe they will. They just traded A.J. Griffin as well during the draft. It seemed like they're starting to move off some pieces, and then maybe they're trying to build around Trae Young, but my guess is 19-year-olds and Trae Young aren't exactly going to go very deep in the playoffs. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe Trae gets dealt this offseason, but next year it would feel significantly more likely. So I think this deal works for both teams, and certainly for the win now situation, the Pelicans definitely works for them. So there you go. There's the breaking news. So back to what I was saying though about the Warriors, and it was what I was going to say about Chris Paul, who I was going to discuss next. This was reported by Woj today that the Golden State Warriors, who today, June 28th, my birthday, had a deadline to either cut Chris Paul or trade Chris Paul and save them a ton of money against their salary cap. According to Woj today, Golden State and Chris Paul intend to move back the date to guarantee the $30 million on his contract for this upcoming season to the start of free agency on Sunday. So basically, East Coast time, 6 p.m. on Sunday, they moved the deadline to either trade or release Chris Paul or cut Chris Paul by that date. So that tells me, and Woj alludes to this, this gives the Warriors time to keep exploring trades. This, to me, is as clear of a sign that Golden State, and it's been widely reported, Sam Amick's has done a great job, Anthony Slater's reported it, Brian Windhorst has reported it, that Golden State is intent on bringing Paul George to the Warriors. Now, the key to that to me, because we saw what Mikal Bridges just went for, and what is to me going to be really interesting for Golden State, because it's also been reported they're going to move off Chris Paul. Them and Chris Paul have agreed they're going to part ways, and the Warriors and Andrew Wiggins have agreed that he won't compete in the for Team Canada in the Olympics. So he won't play with the Canadian team due to some injury situations. And they're trying to move Andrew Wiggins, which I was the first to report on Wednesday. The thing is, though, they obviously want to keep Steph and Draymond, and they also want to keep Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski. Which Kuminga, you guys know what I think about him. I think he is going to be an absolute monster in the NBA. The question is, will the timeline of Kuminga turning into said monster line up with where Steph is right now, where he's right now, the monster in Golden State? If they believe that, and I kind of do, it would be huge if Golden State keeps Kuminga and adds Paul George. Because now you'd have a starting lineup of Steph, Clay. I've said Steph and Clay for years. Clay is not going to be a Warrior. I hate to break it to my fellow members of Dub Nation. Klay Thompson is not going to stay in Golden State. He's not. I know there's been a lot of wishful thinking. Well, this is what we heard. Draymond may not stay. Last year when Draymond was a free agent, guys, Draymond was going to stay in Golden State, and that was widely reported. by sources I trust, and the Warriors were never going to let Draymond exit the building. Never. Not as long as Steph is there. Klay, it's a different story. I promise you Klay's not going to be a Warrior. So the starting lineup for Golden State, in a best-case scenario, Steph, Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kuminga, Paul George, and I think the Warriors, I reported this on Wednesday, could move Andrew Wiggins for Bobby Portis. And Draymond comes off the bench, which I think is, we've seen Draymond come off the bench in the past, the playoffs, pretty good. If Draymond Green's your sixth man, with that starting five, darn right, with Steph Curry manning that ship, you can absolutely, and Paul George is a sidekick who's a perfect fit in Golden State. I mean, I cannot emphasize this. Paul George, guys, Andrew Wiggins was viewed as not only a draft bust, but an expensive draft bust, as an untradeable piece from the Timberwolves back in 2020. And he was the second best player 2 years later on a team that won the championship. You're telling me that Paul George, a multi-time All-Star, a guy who's led multiple teams, the Pacers and the Clippers, I think two Eastern Conference Finals trips with the Pacers, one with the Clippers, that he's not going to fit in Golden State? Coming off the season where he averaged a career in field goal percentage, three-point percentage, games played in the last 5 years, and free throw percentage. That guy's not going to work in Golden State. Folks, the dysfunction that's the Los Angeles Clippers, the unreliable superstar that is Kawhi Leonard. Paul George still made his All-Star games. And when Kawhi, people forget this. The Clippers in their history have made one solitary Western Conference Finals. Kawhi didn't take him there. It was Paul George who took him there. The Clippers. And now he's going to be the number 2 to Steph Curry. Whoo. I'll tell you right now. That works. Again, I want to reemphasize this, and I'll move on to my final topic, talking about free agency destinations, because we just had the Woj bomb drop about DeJounte Murray a few minutes ago. But I feel like the kid on December 23rd. I see the box. It has my name on it. I think I know what it is. I can't open it yet, though, but I'm almost certain I know what it is. That's how I feel as a Warriors fan right now, where, listen, it sucks to see Klay. It does. No player should or ever will wear number 11 again, and that dude deserves a darn statue next to Draymond Green and next to Steph Curry outside of a Chase Center one day. And it is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But Paul George gives the Warriors a better chance to win right now than Klay Thompson at that salary. Now, Klay would not make what Paul George is going to make in Golden State on the 4-year max, but you get, even with more money spent on Paul George, as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. You do. It works. Listen, would I love to see Klay come back as like a bench guy? Oh my gosh, I'd be overjoyed to see that happen. Klay Thompson come off the bench is like the 4th or 5th option on your team? Heck yeah, but that's not going to happen. There's too much friction between Klay and the Warriors. It's not going to occur. Steph and Paul George. Woo, man. And an upcoming Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond Green who's still valuable. Let me tell you something right now. Listen, Monday's show, forget about it. I'm going to be over the moon on the show at Monday at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'm carving it up. Woj added this about this sort of like a closing, I guess, point of the DeJounte Murray trade. New Orleans was 0-24 when trailing, entering the 4th, and 2-14 in close games. To see Murray as a player who can generate offense late in games. Pels remain committed to that core, which includes Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum. The Pelicans are trying to find common ground with Brandon Ingram's contract. So I was wondering about that with this Murray trade. What does it mean for Brandon Ingram? So they're going to at least, try to keep Ingram, who I've been a fan of for a while. I think Brandon Ingram's an excellent player. He's obviously a really good scorer, but okay. So we get a Woj bomb in the middle of the show. I didn't necessarily think that was going to happen, but there you go. So bottom line, all of this, I'm just about to predict free agency right now as far as the star players, that I'm going to be a celebratory mood on Monday's show, because something tells me the tea leaves in Golden State seem to read Paul George isn't going to be the only guy the Warriors get. And the last thing I'll say on that, to me, because to me, this is the most important part about it. Listen, I'll celebrate on Monday's show, no question, because the Warriors will have obviously gotten better in adding Paul George. But does it make them like the favorites out of the West? Probably not. A contender? Yeah, I think so. But the favorites out West, no, I think that's still Denver and Dallas, Minnesota. But I love, and again, this is why I love Joe Lacob and the Warriors front office and everybody in Golden State who has self-awareness to the nines. They recognize that this is a franchise that was worth about $370 million when Steph Curry took over was drafted in 2009. They're worth $8 billion now. Now I get inflation. The economy is different now than it was in 2009. I understand that. But Steph Curry was drafted, I want to say that again, to a franchise worth $370 million. The Warriors now worth $8 billion. Second only to the Dallas Cowboys. Steph Curry took a franchise that was irrelevant is kind to the Warriors, because in some respects they were relevant, just not in the best terms. I mean, in the mid 2000s, they had a player literally choke the coach. We've seen those things happen before. So the Warriors were a disastrous organization for 35 years, 34 years really, until they took Steph Curry. With a few blips, with Run TMC, with We Believe in 2007, a couple fun blips here or there, but the Warriors were kind of a dead franchise for decades until Steph Curry comes in and changes everything. And now the Golden State Warriors, the dead man walking that was the Golden State Warriors for 3 decades. Third most championships in NBA history. Of course, the Celtics at number 1, the Lakers at number 2, and then, albeit it's a distant third, but then it's Golden State. Of course, it's not Chicago. Not the Spurs. It's the Golden State Warriors. It's Steph Curry. That's what he did. And so the brass in Golden State feels a responsibility, as they should, because they see Steph and they're like, his down year at age 36 was 26 points per game and clutch player of the year. That's pretty good. He's still a really good player, all NBA guy. He's done all this for us. He's made us a lot richer than we would have been if we hadn't come into contact with him and been in business with him for as long as we have been. We owe it to him. Like the old guard, the old structure of Golden State, no Bob Myers. It's about to be no Klay Thompson. Iguodala's gone. It's not this. Kevin Durant obviously left years ago. It's not the same as he used to be. We will never win with that core ever again. We owe it to Steph to at least give him a shot to get another title. And we owe it to Steph and owe it to ourselves to not lose Steph. Because I've been of the mindset, and I talked about this during the season, certainly late in the year, whenever the Draymond stuff was happening, that the Warriors risk Steph leaving because he's going to the Olympics against just like LeBron in 08. Different stages of their career, but same effect. LeBron goes in 08. He's Mr. Cleveland. I love Cleveland. Well, there's Dwayne Wade. There's Kobe Bryant and Melo and Chris Bosh. And man, this team's good. There's Dwight Howard over there. Man, nice. Some of those guys. And he leaves. I think Steph Curry could have seen the very same thing in 2024 at the Olympics, playing with LeBron and Kevin Durant and Tatum and Embiid, Booker, and Edwards. So there you go. They have an obligation to him. They do. He's done so much for them. Time they repay the favor, and that's what they're about to do. They're going to add Paul George this weekend, and I think they're going to potentially add another really nice piece. I'm not saying to the level of a Paul George, but a really good piece. And if they keep Kuminga and Podziemski and all this, oh my gosh, can we give Dunleavy Executive of the Year already? Whew! I'm telling you, it's coming. The wave in Golden State. It is, you can see it. If you're on the beach and you see the wave start to build up, you can see it like, uh-oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Woo-hoo. Monday's going to be a fun show. Last segment, sort of as a, I don't know, I guess a prequel to Monday. To me, there are 7, let me count that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 free agents. No, 6 free agents that we're kind of keeping an eye on when free agency begins on Sunday. Like, who will these players sign with? Now, there's another number of guys like Brandon Ingram potentially, like DeJounte Murray, who just got traded, like Zach LaVine potentially, who we're like watching, okay, they could end up somewhere. But as far as the free agents, and that's what's going to begin, and so the deal is going to start to come down the pipe on Sunday night at 6 p.m. East Coast time, I'm going to predict where 6 major names end up this offseason. Do we have another Woj bomb? Okay, no, it's just it's a Kenny Atkinson thing. Okay, let's put the background music on. Here we go. In on and predict where they go or if they stay. Let's start with the biggest one, LeBron James, who's the best free agent this offseason. I think this is a pretty obvious one. LeBron is going to stay with the Los Angeles Lakers. Like that to me feels as obvious as they come. They just drafted Bronny. Anthony Davis is there. They upgraded significantly a head coach in JJ Redick. Listen, is the front office still an unmitigated disaster? No question. But I do think they made the right hire in JJ Redick. LeBron obviously knows the relationship with JJ. AD is still very good, aging quickly potentially by the time LeBron's done. But right now, this is a Lakers team that is a very good basketball team, certainly not a top-of-the-line contender in the Western Conference. But if you have LeBron James, you at least have a puncher's chance. There's no way, again, most importantly, he is not going to turn down the opportunity to play with the team that just drafted his son, a team that which he's played with the last 6 years. LeBron is going to stay with the Lakers. Tyrese Maxey, I think, is going to also stay with his team, the Philadelphia 76ers, who I believe to be worst case, the third best team in the Eastern Conference going into next season because of what I think they're going to do. So Embiid's their best player. This is an MVP, multi-time scoring champion, a guy who I've criticized in the playoffs. I don't trust him in the postseason time and time again, in large part because I don't trust his health. But if you give him a Tyrese Maxey, who loves Philadelphia, speaks highly of Philadelphia, is going to stay in Philadelphia, and you add, it feels like potentially Jimmy Butler. Well, hang on a second. Now we've got a conversation. Now you've got a roster that does have Kelly Oubre, that does have an excellent coach in Nick Nurse. This could really work well for Philadelphia. I think they're an excellent team. The Harden trade was one of the best executive decisions that Daryl Morey has ever made as it pertains to the return he got for Harden. Tyrese Maxey is going to stay in Philadelphia as one of their key pieces. He's their second best player, and he will remain a 76er. The next one, and this could be a trade. It could be, but it could also be a free agent signing. Paul George to the Warriors. Yes, you heard it here first. Well, no, you didn't really hear it here first, but it's going to happen. So I just talked about it a second ago. The Warriors have the assets to give up for Paul George. The Warriors have the cap space moving off of CP3 and Klay Thompson leaving to be able to give Paul George the max extension, the 4-year max that he wants. You pair him with the system, or you pair him with Steph Curry, but you give him a Steve Kerr system where he can play off ball, he can play on the ball. He's a great, long defensive wing that fits perfectly. If Andrew Wiggins fit the Warriors system perfectly, you're telling me Paul George is not? It's going to be a great fit, and the Warriors, my Warriors, are going to land PG-13. I've been a Paul George guy forever, so this is going to be exciting for me in that regard as well. James Harden is going to stay with the Clippers because the Clippers don't really have a choice, and I'm not really sure what Harden's market is at this point. So for Harden, this feels, in a weird way, it's kind of funny. It feels a little bit like the Kyrie situation in Dallas, when the Mavs gave up the farm for Kyrie. The market outside of potentially the Lakers was non-existent for Kyrie, and the Mavs and Mark Cuban and Nico Harrison, because they gave all that up for Kyrie despite a disastrous end of the season. I mean, what are we going to do? Let him go for nothing? Then we gave up all of our assets for a guy who plays for 2 months with us. We have to keep him. Now, I mean, it did work out for the Mavs. They got to a finals, and Kyrie had a really solid postseason and really did a good job at kind of repairing his image. I'm not sure Harden can do that because Harden's image isn't an availability thing like it was for Kyrie, or of a team chemistry thing. It is, I guess, to a degree, but it's more for James Harden. Dude, you choke in the playoffs every year. It's we've never seen anything like it. I mean, you're shooting tour dates in games 5, 6, and 7 of 7-game series. So for the Clippers, listen, this is a do or die situation. He gave up the farm for James Harden. You're about to open a new arena in Los Angeles. You're already the little brother to the Lakers as is. You might as well keep him. You're better off keeping him, at least for the regular season, to at least stay competitive. But yeah, James Harden is going to stay with the Clippers. Speaking of the Clippers, I think they're going to land another potential star player. Let's get the background music back going. Here we go. I think they're going to land another star player. DeMar DeRozan, I think, is going to go to the Los Angeles Clippers, and here's why. He's from Los Angeles. We understand that there's been the Lakers sort of flirtation from one side to the other for the past few years. There's no question the Lakers would have been far better off, and maybe the championship favors. Maybe LeBron and AD get another ring together if they don't make the move for Westbrook. Instead, use that cap space to add a DeMar DeRozan, who was a free agent back in 2021. Negotiations with DeMar with the Bulls seem to have gone kind of stale. The Bulls need to go into a rebuild. DeMar's not going to want to stay there for that, nor should he. He wants to play for a contender. And I'm not saying the Clippers are a contender because I don't think they are. But again, star power, it gives the Clippers relevance. It gives them an opportunity to be a talking point coming into this upcoming NBA season. New arena, awful logo, but they have Kawhi for as long as they have him. They have Harden, at least until the playoffs. And they have DeMar DeRozan, who's the mid-range king, who's always available. One of the most clutch players in basketball last season. I think came in second for clutch player of the year to Steph Curry. So very good player. LA ties. The Lakers thing doesn't really fit. I don't think the Lakers will necessarily make that move because it's Rob Pelinka. What are we talking about? Clippers ownership and front office does seem to be better run in recent years at least than the Lakers. They'll bring in DeMar DeRozan. And finally, Klay Thompson, hate to tell my fellow Warriors fans, will not be a Golden State Warrior. He will be a Dallas Maverick. You heard that here first. So it's been reported today that reportedly Klay and the Mavs share a mutual interest. So we know Philadelphia's been thrown out there. We know the fact that Orlando's been floated plenty of times because they have nothing but cap space. I don't know if Klay at this stage of his career, age 33, obviously diminishing skills, but still a very, very effective player, obviously shooting the basketball, can see a scenario in Orlando where he can contend. Dallas, he can. I get to play with Luka. I get to play with Kyrie. Luka's going to kick me the ball. Hopefully the Mavs change their system and not be as Luka reliant. But would Luka not love a shooter to the level of a Klay Thompson, who in a down season shot essentially 40% from three in the second half of the year after Steve Kerr made some lineup tweaks? He gets to go to good coach in Jason Kidd. I still believe Kidd to be a good coach. And Klay Thompson goes from being the second option for the Warriors to being a third, in some cases maybe even a fourth option if the Mavs make another move to Luka Doncic and the Kyrie Irving. So he gets to play a glorified role player position, a glorified spot-up shooter would be what Klay Thompson is in the Dallas Mavericks. And I think the situation works. And for Klay, I am hoping for his sake he ends up with a good situation where he can have opportunity to play basketball games in April and into May. At least until he runs into his old team, the Warriors. Then I'm sorry, Klay. I got to go with my team. But I think Klay ends up a Mav. I do. I think, I'm not saying, I don't know if it's going to happen Sunday. It very well could, because there's been conflicting rumors and reports alike about where Klay Thompson could end up. But I think Dallas, because the reports were Denver was interested, but I don't think they have the salary space to make it work. Obviously, Jokic just signed, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon. They just signed yesterday. I think it was yesterday, Jamal Murray to a $209 million contract. So it doesn't seem to work financially for the Nuggets. Orlando's got a really good young core. I just don't know I don't see a scenario in which Klay Thompson is the missing piece. Now, the thing with the Magic is because they're so young, their improvements, their acquisitions is time, is experience, not necessarily a player. So in that regard, maybe Klay could work. Other than that, I don't see a scenario in which he's playing certainly beyond the second round of the playoffs, maybe in some cases, depending on the matchup, the first round. So I'm pulling for Klay, and I think Dallas will be a good fit for him, not the Orlando Magic, but we shall see. So go back over it. Let's go last to first in terms of what I just listed there. I think Klay goes to Dallas. DeMar goes to LA, but with the Clippers. Harden stays with the Clippers. Paul George goes to Golden State, baby. Tyrese Maxey stays with the Sixers, and LeBron, to me, the most obvious of all, stays with the Los Angeles Lakers. He's not going to pass up an opportunity to play with Bronny. Come on now. Looks like, okay, Sham says that Heat guard Josh Richardson, Tennessee guy, by the way, go Vols, is going to pick up his $3 million player option to return for the 24-25 season. There you go. Again, I just to finish off, last sort of thoughts I'll give before we get out of here. And I appreciate the birthday wishes. Thank you very much for that. It actually did. It didn't depress me. That's too strong of a word. But it was like, gosh darn it, man. We can't even celebrate a kid getting to play with his dad at the NBA level. Like I don't know. I guess just Emotional appeal can be logically flawed often. I don't know if it necessarily is in this case. Like, and I say that because think about if you were a professional athlete who overcame almost impossible odds as a kid to get to where you are. You do everything right. There's no, again, LeBron, one thing about too, like LeBron, I think that he does take pride in, he's never been traded. He's never asked out of a contract. He's never sat out games, for salary demands or anything like that. Like, we glorify Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan said, I will retire if you ever fire Phil Jackson. And guess what? That's exactly what he did in 1998 after the Bulls won their 6th title. But nobody looked at that as high maintenance. Oh, Jordan's asking for so much. LeBron, it's a different story because there's an animosity towards LeBron because of the decision. But you do everything right by the book. You're a family man. You're the most successful player ever with very few exceptions. And you get to play with your kid who, by the way, guys, he's good enough to be in the NBA. He is. He was a McDonald's All-American. He committed to USC. He had freaking cardiac arrest less than a year ago. You didn't think that was going to hamper him a little bit? Forget basketball. His life, which thank God, because he's in part because he's a young, healthy athlete, in part because he got the quick medical attention in order to help him with his case. Thank God Bronny is healthy, is doing very well. I mean, again, it's not like as if he was riding the bench in high school, was terrible, was awful at basketball, was a good chess player. No, he's really good at basketball. And I think he'll have a solid NBA career. Again, people forget, and I love Steph Curry. That's my guy. I'm a Warriors fan. Steph Curry made me fall in love with basketball, the sport. But Seth Curry, who was undrafted in 2013, started his career in Golden State. And there's no way that Steph didn't go to the front office and say, hey, can you give my little bro a shot? Like, give him an opportunity to be on the roster, play with it. At the time, it wasn't the G League, it was the D League, the developmental league. Play with the D League, like give an opportunity to get better, to improve. And they did. They did. Nobody was whining and moaning about nepotism then. We don't whine and moan about nepotism with Thanasis Antetokounmpo, who's terrible, but with the Bucks, with Giannis, no whining then. We don't whine about the Kennedys in politics. We don't whine about the Bushes in politics. If we're going to go back to 19th century, the Adams family, John Adams, John Quincy Adams, to the 2nd and 6th president of the United States. We don't whine and cry and moan about great Hollywood actors who have kids who are Hollywood actors who get an opportunity to be Hollywood actors because of their successful parents. But when LeBron does it, it's a problem. I really, man, people do not like LeBron James, man. Goodness gracious. At any rate, that's where we are. We can't even celebrate that type of story. It really is a shame. But I love to see it. I may hate the Lakers, but I love to see this. It's a cool darn story. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday. It's going to be a fun show, baby. Free agency reaction. We're going to have all kinds of stories to talk about at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We are on the road trying to push towards 5,000 subscribers. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much for your support for the show, for your love of the show. It means everything to me and to everybody who's involved with Carving It Up. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving It Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Neelan was not in the greatest mood today. I have to admit, I love him dearly. Not in the greatest mood today. Nonetheless, tell everybody you know about the show. If you haven't subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. If you're on YouTube, hit that big red subscribe button down there and boom, you're part of the Carving Up family, just like that. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Free agency this weekend, baby. Let's go. I can't wait, man. Paul George is going to be a Warrior, I'm telling you. Be a fun show on Monday. Tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun. May have some guests in. We'll see. Free agency starts at 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Carving Up Live starts at 6 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Cannot wait. I will see you then. Please stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America, no matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us as American citizens, as people, as society, as a society. No matter what anybody on either side of the aisle tries to gaslight you on, oh, this isn't a problem. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. That's total BS. It's a huge problem that is a number of big, important, nuanced solutions to it. And if I can, I'm probably the only person in the world that has this take on last night's disastrous presidential debate. Why the F was guns not brought up? Was gun violence not brought up? That drives me bananas. Every election cycle, it never comes up, and it drives me insane. Not that other issues don't matter, because they do. That never gets brought up, despite it being one of the the number one leading cause of death in children today. So feels moderately important. We're all about protecting the kids, but maybe that's just me. All right. I will see y'all on Monday. Free agency stuff. Paul George, he's going to be a warrior. I'm telling you. Stay safe out there, y'all. God bless y'all. Peace out. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.